Today's episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast is brought to you by AOS Outdoor Kitchens. They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists. We're back with another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast. Today we're talking to Woz from Woz's Sauce Hut, and we're going to be finding out how the business started, his inspiration around creating barbecue sauces, and as ever, we want to hear from you. So you'll see at the top of the episode description our fan mail link where you can message into us. Unfortunately, we can't message you back, but we'd love to hear. So make sure you pop your name and your message, and we can read them out in the next episode. Without further ado, here's Woz. Hi, Woz. Thanks for coming on to the show. Really excited to have you here and start talking about your delicious sauces. Please, for everyone that hasn't heard of Woz's sauce, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Warren, aka Woz from Woz's Sauce Hut. We do a range of handcrafted everyday sauces, so they're not pigeonholed into just barbecue. You can use them as marinated glazing, dipping, add them into dishes that you cook just to try and get people to experiment with flavors and food again. We try and make them free from all the junk we don't want in our food. Yes, that's me in a nutshell, really.
Again, really fantastic to have you on. Obviously, myself and Dan have tried a number of the sauces and know how great they are. So we, when the opportunity came to talk to you, we were keen to kind of understand a little bit more about the story and kind of, I suppose, where you started to kind of where you are now, and also, any juicy gossip and first, if you want to tell us about what's coming up in the future, that will also be appreciated as well. But so I appreciate not pigeoning it whole into barbecue, but just sort of food in general. So have you always kind of been into food and doing sauces, and how did it come about?
Yeah, I've always been, when I was a kid, everything had to have sauce. With it, I come from a family. My dad was a chef, so we got that love of food from him. He always did like weekend cooks, and if we ever had people over, family and friends, he always did the big spreads that I love doing. But funny enough, it was more from my mum doing the weekday meals. My mum's the type of person, if you could just put a peel on the plate, she's happy. But she was able to turn these dishes into such flavor bombs. And I always, as a kid, remember sitting there thinking, wow, this is, just tastes so good. But of course, always had to have a little bit of sauce with it as well. So yeah, there's that sort of food background I come from. So that's where the main love for food started, I suppose.
And going from that passion, did you just wake up one day and go, do you know what? I'm just going to make some sauces. It was like an epiphany at night time. Tomorrow I'm going to make some sauce.
Moment, yeah. No, it wasn't actually. I always used to sort of mess around, sort of coming home from school for lunch. I'd always like squirt loads of stuff together and make something from it. But the actual sauce side of things, mainly, I suppose, stemmed when my children were born. Because both my son and my daughter had so many allergies. I swear, I don't know if you've ever seen the Simpson advert where Bart's in that ball.
Yeah,
that should have been my son. It's just like everything he was allergic to. So gone the days of just popping in and picking up a sauce off the shelf and using it. So I had to start adapting the type of sauces I liked. That at that time was very much barbecue orientated. To try and make them allergen free so they could have it as well. So that's sort of where it stemmed from, just sort of making sauces that the family could have that wouldn't put him in hospital.
It's strange, isn't it? The amount of, let's say it, crap that turns up in sauces that you wouldn't even imagine that could set off so many different things in people. As soon as you speak to anyone that has any sort of allergies, you start to realize how limiting it can be. So how was it trying to replicate or create the sauces that wouldn't set anything off? And also, I imagine it limits how much you can put in to extend the shelf life as well, because there's lots of those types of things that can set off allergies that extend the use by date, right?
It does. For me, it was basically just trying to find alternatives. So where, say, for instance, they would use Worcestershire sauce, you know, I would then try and find a free from sort of alternative, and stuff like that. But also just trying to just bring it back to just using wholesome ingredients, fresh ingredients that would make a delicious sauce without adding. And there's plenty of sort of natural preservatives you can use that gives it that shelf life. But ironically, if you just use pure ingredients, that helps straight away.
I'm going to straight off. What's your favourite out of the range that you've got? What is your favourite? I know what mine is, and I'll tell you in a sec. But I'm keen to know what's yours.
Funny enough, we get asked this a lot of the shows, and it's like trying to choose your best child. There's
always one though.
Yeah, we all have one.
We always have one. Yeah, I suppose the Captain, because that was sort of probably one of my first sauces. At the moment, I'd say to date is probably the new Ambassador, the South African sauce, because we've not long launched that. So I'm sort of just constantly playing with it, pushing it, seeing what it will work with and what I think it won't work with. So I'd probably say, yeah, the Captain, because it was one of the first we launched, is probably still there, my favourite.
Yeah. So I said that we've obviously tried a few. The Captain is one that we haven't, but for me, it was Kraken's Fury.
Okay, yeah.
I like a spicy brown sauce. Oh my God. It was a proper kind of punch in the face for breakfast, you know, with your bacon sandwich. Oh, brilliant.
It's that, and also it's the rum element that really comes through in it too. That it's like a holiday punch in the face. And I don't mean like from a festive point of view. It's like Christmas, but it's like on a beach punch in the face. That, and I also love Gentleman's Choice as well. Those are my two favorites.
So the Kraken's Fury came about basically when I launched the Captain. That's a honey rum chipotle sauce. Everyone sort of loved it, but there was just a few said, we want a hotter version. Can you do a hotter version? And I wasn't actually going to do any hot sauces because I think there's so many great companies out there doing some amazing hot sauces. But for me, I'm not a great hot sauce fan. I'm more flavor driven than heat driven. So I always said to them, if I can do it where it's more flavor based and the heat doesn't just sort of blow your head off and you don't enjoy your food. So yeah, that's how the Kraken came about, just by tweaking the Captain.
I think that's a really important thing. And me and Dan have had this conversation multiple times about, you're right, there are some fantastic hot sauce companies out there, but there is also some hot sauces that are really not nice because they have prioritized heat for impact. And I find, you know, if they really sometimes sour and bitter tastes because it is focusing on heat rather than flavor. And for me, it's just not my type of personal choice. You're right. You almost want the flavor to come first, and then the warming heat that comes afterwards as an afterthought, necessarily, rather than something that's too in your face.
That's what a lot of people get when they have the Kraken. They get all the flavor first of sort of the honey, the spices from the rum, and then that nice little warm sort of chipotle flavor on the back end of your palate. And then often they say, "Oh, where was the heat?" And I say, "Just wait." And then the heat
builds. Yeah.
But it drops off fairly quickly, even though it's Naga we use. It's quite a hot chili. I think combining it with the other ingredients, it just drops off nicely. So when you go back to your food, you get what I call that roller coaster ride of flavors, heat, and then back to the food again. So yeah, it's funny because the Tropical Flame that we've just launched is the habanero and pineapple. That's the other way around. So you get the habanero heat first, but then the pineapple pushes through that. So then it drops the heat down, so then you get the sweetness of the pineapple. So yeah, the two sort of, I don't know if I'll do any more hot sauces. I'll probably just stick to those, but who knows?
Never say never, right?
Yeah. Just thinking as well about the fact that this journey kind of started with looking at options for your children. So, like, was your son like 6 or 7 when you introduced the Kraken, and was his feedback like, "Oh, this tastes like, you know, say the Jerry's dad, well done in getting that rum coming through."
Yeah, funny, my boy just could not do hot sauces.
I'm not
Uh,
surprised at 6 or 7.
yeah, he just couldn't do hot sauce. But yeah, the Kraken is actually one of his favourites
Is
now.
it?
Yeah, he really likes it. Well,
Yeah.
he is almost 20 now.
Nah, in my head he's 6 or 7 because that's far funnier.
Yeah, but my daughter, she's still she's still little. She's not sort of almost 18. That's it's not going to happen.
And interested to kind of know your process. So how long does it take you to go, right, this is the sauce that I'm going to do, or this is the idea of what I want to do, to here it is bottled, going out to a stockist. How long does that process normally take?
It can vary. Um, so the Crackers Fury was fairly quick because I already had a base from the captain. So anywhere from 6 months to sometimes longer. Because what I tend to do is I tend to make the sauce, put it on the shelf, leave it for a month or so, let the flavors really settle down, and then try it again, and then see if I'm happy with it then, and then sort of start tweaking it. The one that gave me probably the most headache was the Hawaiian Tropics. So that's a hibiscus base sauce. That came around with sort of a 4 o'clock in the morning, couldn't sleep, just thinking about what's in the cupboard. And I remembered I bought my wife a bag of hibiscus leaves for tea. And I was like, I wonder if something could be made out, because it's got a really nice floral note to it, but it's got a nice little sharpness as well that I thought would be ideal for cutting through sort of fattier meats like pork and duck. But it also had quite a softness there that I thought would pair quite well with fish and chicken and stuff like that. So I made that one, tasted it. I thought, yeah, I've nailed it first time. Can't believe this. Put it on the shelf, came back, and it just had this really disgusting bitter taste to it. So I tweak one ingredient, go back, that didn't change it. So that ingredient goes back to the same. And it was just all this tweaking constantly back and forwards. And it turned out that it was the length of the brewing of the tea.
Wow, really?
Right.
It changed the strength of the hibiscus tea, but then brought in this like bitterness to it. So yeah, it was probably a good 6, 7 months. That one, it almost came to a point where I saw this ain't working, this isn't working. Funny enough, that was the one that when we launched, won us the Great Taste that year when we launched.
Oh, wow.
I was pretty chuffed about that. I've persevered through that one.
Yeah. And obviously in the kind of various iterations of obviously what you've come to now, and you started to talk about pairing, and I know that's what me and Dan kind of wanted to try and talk to you about, in terms of, is that part of the process as well, that before it is bottled and ready for sale, that you are testing it, and that it goes, you do cook I don't know, a joint of pork and try whatever sauce, and actually, yes, that doesn't quite work, or actually this pairs. Do you kind of have to do a lot of cooking to go through and see what pairing happens, or?
Yes, to a point. But what I've also tried to do is, because I'm a strong believer that each person picks different things out of food, especially sauces. So when we do shows, we do tasters, and often people go, "Oh, I'm picking this out," and I'm like, "Okay, fair enough." So yeah, I try and sort of see what it goes with when I'm cooking and when I've made it. But then I like to sort of keep them quite. I don't pigeonhole them again, like I was saying about the barbecue. That this one is only for chicken, and this one will only be for fish and stuff. Because what I want people to do is go, I wonder if it would go with this, and for them to start experimenting and finding that joy of going, wow, this is amazing. Like our Carpe Diem coffee sauce, that's probably the only one to a point I would say, it's mind blowing on beef.
I was going to mention that I was waiting to kind of say to you that I love the fact that it's a coffee and beef. To me, are a beautiful combination. I love the fact that it almost feels creamy, and to me, I don't know if it's in there or if I imagine it, but it feels like there's a bit of cinnamon as well. There's something that's sort of that note that maybe is reminiscent to coffee that matches so well with beef, that when those things come together, it's so rounded that it feels specifically to me with beef, a great pairing.
Oh, it is, yeah. And also we encourage people to use it in sauce in your dishes. So like chili con carnes, tacos, any of those mince-based dishes, it works really well. But I know people that use it as a salad dressing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's sort of what I want to sort of see and hear. Sort of people going, "Oh, I've tried it like this." Like one of my best ones is Paul from Potter's Barbecue.
Yeah.
Um, he's put the Island Breeze, the mango sauce, on his McFlurry.
I was about to say I'm tempted to put the carb DM with some sort of, whether it be ice cream or chocolate or something.
Yeah.
It feels like, even if it's a mixture with brownie or something, it feels like it would go quite well.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the beauty of food in general, especially when you start going down sort of the sauces or even rubs. Um, just finding different ways to use that product and not go, oh, that's my beef rub, that's my chicken rub, but go, hey, why didn't I put the chicken rub on some beef or on some fish, or just to see
Yeah.
what it does. I always say to people, you're never going to create a meal that you're going to go, ugh, that was the you're going to normally go, yeah, I didn't really overly enjoy that, but guess what, I've found something, I've learned something, I'll try something different next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Dan had a bit of a cookout session last year, and I picked up a number of your sauces from Rusty Barbecue and Shack MK, I think was where I got Kraken's Fury. So yeah, me and Dan just basically had a bit of an afternoon, and we were trying lots of sauces and rubs, and yeah, it was a cracking day.
Yeah.
Kraken day.
Kraken
Thank you.
day.
I didn't even mean that.
No.
Something that I'm fascinated by, because I don't think it's talked about much, and as someone who's in the industry, how do you even go about working out things like use by dates? Is it as simple as you bottle it and leave it for as long as possible, then check it after a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months? How do you even start to come up with that process for it to also be signed off?
Yeah, so that was a real headache because our council wasn't overly helpful when I phoned them about stuff. They were saying sort of like when I had to kit out the shed for cooking in, I phoned them up and said, "This is what I'm doing." They're like, "Okay, what do I need to do?" And they were like, "Well, you build it, we'll come and have a look at it, and if it's right, we'll let you know." And I thought, this isn't Field of Dreams, build it and they will come type of story. It's like, why could be spending so
Yeah.
much money that I don't need to? Fortunately, my dad sort of said, do this, do that. So when it came to the actual testing, again, I went back to the council and said, what do I need to do? And they were like, well, we can't really advise you. You need to search for labs that would do testing. I was like, okay. And that took probably about 6 months, phoning round, finally getting to people, and they'll say, oh, how many sources you test in a month? And at the time I had 4 sources. That was it. I said, I only want to test 4. Okay, what do you want testing? I was like, I don't know. Help me out here. Give me some feedback.
But in 2 weeks, it's not going to kill anyone, right? You tell me that.
Safe, you know what I mean? And I said, I want a good shelf life. One company said, oh, yes, it's about £10,000. And I was like, each source? And they were like, yeah. I was like, okay, maybe I've got to go back to the drawing board here. Fortunately, I found this amazing little independent company, phoned them up, and they were like, no. So I gave them the list that they sent through. They said, you don't need any of that. It's a source. You need this, 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 and this, and this, and test it. And it's done through real time. So you determine how long you roughly want your sauce to last. So for me, I wanted a minimum of at least 2 years on the shelf, because I thought if my sauce is sitting on someone's shelf in a store for more than 2 years, it's not going to be a good sauce. But I thought at least it gives then the stockists, time with it. Yeah, so I sent them off enough to test the first batch to get the baseline of pH and sort of bacteria and stuff like that. And then every 6 months, they just tested another batch they had on their shelves. And if it passed, then it moved on to the next 6 months. And yeah, until it got to the 2 years. And unfortunately, our sources are really stable, that they could have gone longer. But I said, look, 2 years is plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. again, that seems like overly making it complicated for you when you're trying to do the right thing to launch a business and not necessarily getting the help that you need.
Yeah, it's. I think it just council to council because I've spoken to so many people now that I've met through the shows and that I've got talking to. And one thing I will say, the community, especially the barbecue community, they're just fantastic. They'll help you out. They'll give you advice. They'll point you in directions. At the beginning, I didn't really know anyone generally in that industry. But yeah, you get to me and they say, "Well, try here, try this," and then you get to know different techniques and different ways of doing stuff and different connections as well. It's brilliant.
Out of interest, how did you get into the barbecue community? Are you an avid barbecuer yourself, and it got just kind of fitted, or
Yeah. So
where did that start?
yeah. So I've always enjoyed cooking on open fire. When I was younger, my dad always had a barbecue that we used to cook on, but it was never ever anything. Hate to say it, very typical sort of English barbecues. Um, and then I met my wife, perhaps 25 years ago now, and she's from South Africa. So when we got married, I spent almost a year and a half over there. So then really got myself into the whole braai and open fire and the poikies and stuff like that. So that sort of reignited this passion for cooking outside. And to be honest, I don't think I've cooked indoors properly probably for the last 10 years. Everything gets cooked outside. Fortunately, now I've got this. I had like a little outdoor kitchen that's now turned into a storage room. My wife kindly gave up her decking area, so I put a big roof over it, and then all my barbecues in here now, where I am now. So yeah, it's quite nice. It's all covered, and I could just come in, doesn't know what the weather's doing,
Yeah.
and cook. So yeah, so it's sort of I've always had that passion, but I think it was just slowly got bigger as you start cooking more and start learning different techniques, and then also just sort of through the barbecue community, learning how so much more a barbecue can do. You know what I mean? And I love someone said to me, I use it all the time. If it's got a lid, it's an oven.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. And I'm like, when he first told me this, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because you're always thinking, oh yeah, but I'm cooking like a joint type of thing. It needs to be in an oven. Yeah, well, it's got a lid, so it's an oven. Just put it in your
Yeah,
barbecue. So yeah, so stuff like that.
Do you think subconsciously that's why your sauces work so well with barbecue? I know they can be for everything, but do you think that's part of that, why that journey has worked in that way?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because originally, I suppose that's what I originally was aiming for. I was going to do a range of barbecue sauces because I also got a little bit tired of the typical barbecue sauce, sweet, sticky,
Brown
smoky,
sugar, just brown sugar.
full of absolutely everything under the sun that's not good for you in a way. And I thought there's got to be something more flavor based and just not sort of this one dimension that don't get me wrong, I think a good barbecue sauce has its place, and I think we've seen a change in flavor profiles of barbecue sauce. But I do still feel the typical barbecue sauce is just very flat. Like I say, just sugar, more sugar, a little bit of liquid smoke, and more sugar, and that's it. And so I suppose that's where my initial thought pattern was to create this beautiful range of barbecue sauces, but quickly got to see that actually these are more than just a barbecue sauce. These are a sauce that can be used in everyday cooking. So I always say to people, don't change how you cook. You know, just experiment in the house or in the garden.
Liquid smoke. Uh, I I bought some years ago, and I think I can't remember if I was just doing something internal in the kitchen that needed some liquid smoke or whatever, and I'd never tried it before. I put it in the dish, and okay, it enhanced it, but I wasn't enough into smoking like I am now that I would have probably just bought the smoking myself with burning wood or whatever. Have you ever just tried a teaspoon of liquid smoke on its own? It is
Yeah.
probably one of the worst things in the world. It's so foul.
It really is. It's that harsh, bitter,
Oh God.
but yeah, on its own. But I think again with liquid smoke in the right way with the right ingredients balanced correctly, it adds that nice little undertone. Um, but yeah, if you use too much of it, it's harsh. It rips your taste buds apart. It really does.
I think it also gives you the opportunity to be exact as well, which if you're just trying to apply smoke to something, it's so much harder to get exactly what you're looking for. Don't get me wrong, if you're doing like a brisket or something longer term, there is this is the right word, danger, to try and put as much smoke on it as possible. But anyone who's been barbecuing for a while, you would have had once or twice where you've gone, I've over smoked that, which is something that's rarely talked about. Everyone's talking about these smoke rings and things, but I suppose at least liquid smoke, if you're going for consistency, it gives you that level of control which you wouldn't have by simply chucking bits of wood over embers and coals.
Yeah, and I've never enjoyed that heavily smoked meat. Or it just never sits right with me. Um, so even when I do a brisket or pulled pork, I will like on the Traeger. I'll only do super smoke for a short period of time. So you get
Mhm.
you get the flavour, you get that smoke flavour. Um, but yeah, on my first early sort of barbecuing, I was the same. Keep chucking the logs on,
Yeah.
on this inch thick sort of like smoke ring around it. And all this. It was just that, yeah, didn't sit right with me.
If you've been looking or thinking about an outdoor kitchen, then look no further than AOS Outdoor Kitchens.
They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.
Their extensive showroom is based just outside Bournemouth on the Dorset-Hampshire border, and as well as numerous in-store displays, also features a live outdoor kitchen where they cook every week on Kamado grills, pizza ovens, and all filmed and shown on YouTube.
They offer a wealth of knowledge on how to transform your patio into the most incredible outdoor dining area with styles and options to suit every budget, and you can guarantee they will be able to create something perfectly suited to you and your home.
They stock and supply everything that you're going to need for outdoor cooking, including barbecues, Kamado ovens, pizza ovens, outdoor fridges, and every accessory that you would need to become the ultimate outdoor chef.
So if you want to make yourself the envy of your friends and neighbours, get in touch with them today to arrange a consultation and take the first step in transforming your back garden into the most incredible entertainment space.
Visit aoskitchens.co.uk. One of the things that we hold dear on the podcast is barbecue fails. Now, obviously, we can talk about sauces if you prefer rather than some cooking fails, but I'd love to, if you've got any sort of great stories around some of the things that hasn't gone so well, cooking or sauce wise, that we'd love to hear them. Was
Yeah, so cooking, and I haven't tried them again, and I must do because I've got to redeem myself. Um, Beef cheeks. So
Oh, Owen will back you up with this as well. I've had a good experience with them, but Owen, not so
yeah,
much.
so I thought to myself, I'll go do these beef cheeks, and I wanted to do them in a poiki over the fire. So I was looking at the sort of the recipe and all this, and I thought, yeah, I've got it. Yeah, perfect. Put them in, get them some nice color, then add all the other flavors and then over the fire, let it bubble for like 6 odd hours, 7 hours. And I thought this is going to be the bomb. You know what I mean? I was really sort of looking forward to this. Almost did this procession with this big pot and like put it on the table. And went in there and oh, what's this? And I was like prying this lump of meat off the bottom, and it literally was a brick. It was just like, it was a deadly weapon. It was so hard and it was just like black and yeah. So
oh, no.
yeah, my family don't let me live that down. And I said to them, I said, oh, I'm going to buy some beef cheeks. They were like, no. I said, no, I'm going to do them properly this time, I promise. Yeah, so I've got to.
I feel your pain. Yeah, beef cheeks. I was like you, super excited to try. I'd never cooked them before, so I kind of part smoked them and then braised them a little bit. But I could have hung wallpaper up with them. They were so pasty. It was just when you kind of taken the fat and the sinew and it is like gloopy, gluey wallpaper paste. It was
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't for me.
So yeah, I've got to redo that and redeem myself on the beef cheeks. Not so much a fail on the sauce, but I underestimated when I was doing the Kraken, the power of the Naga.
Yeah.
No mask, no gloves, no stuffing, and I suffered for hours. Yeah, it's funny enough, it's the only chili that makes me sneeze continuously.
Oh, like some people, everyone reacts slightly different, right? Hot chilies make me hiccup.
Okay.
Like I will start hiccuping before it's too hot for me. So the problem I've got is sometimes I go for a hot curry. I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. It was like, are you? Because you were just hiccuping the whole time, and I don't know where that comes from. But I know other people, like you said, who sneeze and sneeze and sneeze with hot chilies as well.
Just like sheer pain, your eyes are like swelling up, and yeah, so not so much a fail, but I learned to wear protective clothing, little hazmat suit.
You got to be careful what you touch with your hands afterwards as well, haven't you?
Yep, I've made that mistake as well. I've had a pole on fire for at least 24 hours because it doesn't matter how much you wash your hands, if you've had something properly hot, there is one, two, three, maybe more skins you don't want to be touching if you've had hot things on your hands, right?
Oh, it's vicious stuff, and Naga is not the hottest out there, so I'd hate to think how some of these other chilies react. But yeah, so not
Oh,
so much.
it's painful. That's just factual. I did it in a hot wing challenge where I tried one of the hottest wings that they were doing at Sizzle Fest. Washed my hands. 20 minutes later, had a wee, and I could still feel it more than a day later.
Yeah, that's pain. That is.
So just more just on the cooking side for a minute was obviously you mentioned a Traeger. You've got your kind of shack there that you know your kitchen. What do you tend to cook on when you are creating meals for yourself and the family?
So midweek, when it's like a bit of a hurry, I'd say the Traeger Ranger, um, because something about the Traeger, when you cook chicken in a Traeger, it just locks in that moisture.
Yeah.
So I suppose go to will be the Traeger for quick, easy meals. Yeah, it's hard because I like to try and rotate so no one gets left out.
Go through them all then. Go through them all.
So during the weekend, it's definitely either the Bry from the Bry Man, or the Master Built. I quite enjoyed playing with that.
Is that the gravity fed one?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
800.
Yeah.
I have just picked up a Blackstone, so
Oh
I'm
yeah.
enjoying playing around with that at the moment. What else? I've got a Louisiana ceramic grill, sort of the egg
Okay.
style. Um, and I think that's just great. It's like tonight I just fired it up for some good old steaks, get that nice sear on them. Because that's one thing Traeger I don't think you can get with a Traeger, um, unless I'm wrong and someone can help me out with that. But you just don't get that lovely crust on a
I've
steak.
I've not managed it with a Traeger.
No, I think the new ones they've got that. I could be wrong, but I think the new ones have got that sliding vent, haven't they? On, so you can get the sear.
Uh,
Or
I'm
have they
not.
got?
I'm not sure. I know because I know that we were, me and Dan were playing with. We went down to AOS Kitchens, who sponsors the podcast recently, and we did a bit of cooking, and we ended up using the Traeger new Timberline one
Okay.
with the induction hob, and
It was
it's
that we were more excited
an
about.
incredible piece of kit. To be fair,
Yeah, like you'll be able to get a proper sear using the induction hob, but is that the same as if you were doing it actually on the grill?
Yeah. I think the grill with the flames and that just gives that flavour
yeah.
to it. Yeah, so that's probably it's probably all I've got, I'd say. So yeah, plenty to play with and different forms that I quite like. So the live fireside, I've got a tiny little fire pit that I use sometimes with the tripod.
Yeah.
Um, um,
I'm
yeah,
seriously considering venturing into that. Like for years and years and years, I've been looking at some of the Kadai bowls and tripods and things, But if I was going to do it, I want to make sure that I pair it nicely with, as you said, a proper fire pit. So we can enjoy the fire pit, stick a grate on there. If we want to do anything hot and fast on there, we can. But if you want to get more excited, get the tripod out, get an asado going on there, that sort of thing. But I'm not quite there yet. But I think that's probably going to be my next barbecue purchase, if I'm honest.
Very good. Yeah. Go to also the fails slightly. I set up my tripod with the chicken basket.
Yeah.
Put the chicken in, and you just slowly just take it off the hook and rotate it, and it was all going perfectly fine until I went to rotate it, and the latch came undone, and the chicken fell out.
Oh no!
So I quickly scooped it up, put it back in the cage, hung it up, looked down, and one of the wings had come off. So I thought, oh well, fine. It was almost done. The chef's treat. So I just picked it up and went like that. Put it out. There was a lump of coal on the other side.
Oh,
Oh, God.
Yeah. Note to self: check first before you shove it in your mouth.
to be fair, I bet if you had like any ulcers or anything, that would have seared there and sealed it perfectly.
Yeah, right. So that was a big old lump on the end of my lip.
Oh
Yeah.
God,
God,
that sounds
Jesus.
awful. I had a mini fail recently. Luckily I Googled it afterwards. It's fine to do, but the people who owned this property previously had a maple tree in the garden, which they cut down. And I was told they put all the wood for it in the wood store that was left here and also down the side of the greenhouse. So I was like, oh, I like maple. I'll do a bit of indirect and I'll chuck some maple on there, try and get some flavour through it. Well, it doesn't smell right, but I've been told what it is. Eating the steak doesn't taste like maple. It's nice, but turns out, spoke to the neighbour afterwards. He's like, nah, when he cuts down the grapevine, he just puts all of the vine cuttings down there. So I've smoked over grapevine. Apparently, it's a thing and it's fine. But when you're just told, nah, you might have poisoned yourself, mate, you go, oh, be a bit more conscientious with what you're doing.
Oh dear.
So, what's next? What's are you? I don't know if you're allowed to drop any secrets, but what's the plans for the business and sources and things moving forward?
I have got a sauce in mind I'm playing with. I won't say what yet. But yeah, I have got a sauce. It's probably going to be more. The only thing I will say, it's going to probably be more sort of towards the mopping maybe side,
Mm.
Oh, okay.
possibly. So that is sort of more focused, geared to the barbecuer.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe something. I'm not sure how it's going to go yet, but there's something. There's something there. I know in my mind there's something there. I just got to try and work out how to get that all to come together. Business wise, for me, it's just really just trying to grow it into stockists, get people to try it. I didn't mention one of the other main reasons was my main job I do is manual labor. And when I was younger, I damaged my back, and now I'm getting that ripe old age. It's getting harder to do the manual work. So that's one of the main reasons we set this up, so I can hopefully transition over and it to be my full-time work. That'd be the dream, to be able to just do the sauces every day. And so that's the plan long term, is to turn it into a full-time job. But yeah, just to get it out there and get people to try it, and hopefully get them experimenting with cooking again.
Fantastic. Well, talking about experimenting with cooking, I think this is probably a good time to do our barbecue bingo challenge, where we can hopefully give you a decent ingredient to try and cook something with if you're up for it. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll bring up the wheel that we can kind of run through the ingredients.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk people listening on the podcast through this, because I'm conscious that not all of you watch on YouTube. In fact, a lot of you listen to podcasts and you guys can't physically see the wheel. So how do you know what's on there, right? So items on there, we have Szechuan pepper, duck, chicken hearts, beef tongue, monkfish, pineapple, octopus, goat, vindaloo paste, andouille sausage, beef neck, kangaroo, tripe, squid, paella, and something that we love to call my signature dish. Owen, do you want to go through that?
Yeah, so if it lands on my signature dish, Waj, we'd love you to cook what you're best known for.
Okay.
So what would that be? What are you best known for?
Yeah, it's funny enough because I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and I mentioned to the family I was coming on. I said, "What would you say my signature dish is?" Because to me, I don't feel like I've got one
Yeah.
because I'm painful. I very rarely cook necessarily the same thing weekly or even monthly. I always like to try something different. And they both sort of said maybe my pork belly burnt ends
Nice.
or a bunny chow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're the two sort of dishes that they enjoy the most when I cook them.
I don't think I've ever had bunny chow. What?
So basically, it's a Durban curry. So from South Africa, so it's got a bit of spice to it. And then what you basically do is you get a nice fresh white loaf of bread. You
Yeah.
core out the center and you fill it with curry, and then you just sit there and just pick away at the sides and eat the curry as you sort of picking away the sides to the bottom, so you get that nice little soggy base that you just then eat.
I've had
Oh,
that
nice.
before. I've never heard it called that. So, in Wales, I've had that at least twice or three times. I've only ever seen it called a curry loaf.
Okay, yeah.
I've never seen it called that, and not something you bring up often. 'Cause like in Wales, I've had this, and I've not seen it anywhere in England. What's wrong with you freaks? But it's not something you see anywhere. It's really really rare. But if you anyone who's near Cardiff or wants to go down there, there is an area that's kind of known locally as like kind of the Curry Mile. But if you go past the university, there's a turning on the left, and it's all different Asian establishments. It's not just Indian places, lots of stuff there, but quite a few places down there do it. But I've not seen it or heard it. I just thought it was a quirky Welsh thing. I didn't know it was actually. Well, it sounds like it was South African originally.
Yeah, it's a South African dish. Could be wrong, but I believe that's where it stemmed from, was Durban in South Africa. That's why they call it. It's mainly a Durban curry, but yeah, they call it bunny chow over there. Very nice.
I think that would be a good one. Okay, so what we'll do then, we'll give it a spin. All of these ingredients have been left from previous guests, so if you could have it in the back of your mind, because whatever you get, I'd love you to add one on for the next guest. So
if it doesn't land, I think on the tripe or the monkfish, I'll be happy.
Come on, tripe.
Beef tongue, I don't mind.
Okay, so we're spinning.
There we go.
You couldn't have done that better. Beef tongue. There you go. You don't mind that, so it's fine.
Okay, so what sauce would you pair with beef tongue?
Carpe diem, I think.
Yeah.
Good show.
Carpe diem, or actually probably all the Hawaiian tropics. Goes really nice with beef as well. Something a little bit different, a little floral. But yeah, probably the Carpe diem, my go-to for beef.
So what's your initial thoughts with beef tongue? What springs to mind? Putting you on the spot here, but
yeah, please my wife. She didn't like beef tongue when I made it last.
Oh yeah.
Oh, beef tongue. For me, I think straight away I go to like your sort of tacos, those type of things, burritos, with it in, sort of boil it first with some spices, get that membrane off, into the smoker for a few hours, and then finally chop it straight onto like the Blackstone or a griddle plate, get that like little bit of caramelization going on. So yeah, that's where I'm sort of thinking down that route. But I might find a different way of doing it than I've done it before. That's my problem. If I do it one way, I'll find a different way to do it the next. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm happy with that.
I've never had beef tongue, to be fair. It's not something I've tried. I probably should, but I know that my family probably won't eat it.
I just don't tell them.
Yeah,
this is true. Yeah.
Have a go. Yeah.
Yeah, steak.
What do you think? Yeah. And it's I'm eating it, and they've gone, "Oh, that's really nice." Then I tell them, because I'm always bringing unusual food.
My grandfather, rest his soul, used to cook beef tongue all the time. The way he got me to have it, he said there was only one way to cook beef tongue. You boil it, take it out, leave it to cool, and then you dice it finely and fry it off. So it really gets that color in it. And then he just used to put it in sandwiches, like sandwiches, tomato sauce, or if you're feeling spicy, I don't know why I felt that way, but tomato puree. And great way. So tacos to me feels almost like a better version of that, like a pimped up version. So that would be a great way to do it.
Yeah, no, I think beef tongue's got a lovely, rich, that real rich beefy flavour. It stinks when you're boiling it, and that's probably wipe off.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention it, but the smell, that's one of the big memories that I have from him doing that. You'd go over there, be like, oh, it's beef tongue day. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, it's pretty strong, the old beef tongue.
So what ingredient would you like to leave for the next guest?
I was thinking about this, and one thing I do enjoy, and I've got my family to enjoy it finally, was frog legs.
Oh, that's a first.
Yeah,
I
do basically a bit like buffalo wings, but buffalo frog legs. So with the buffalo sauce and stuff like that, and it's really nice. So I did that about 3 or 4 months ago, and got the family to all eat it. They actually quite enjoyed it. Finally got my neighbour across the road who we passed food to. He was like, "Oh, it smells nice. What's that?" And I sort of showed it to her. She goes, "Oh, I don't want that." I got her to try, and she enjoyed it as well. So yeah, the old buffalo frog legs are really nice.
It carries flavour so well, doesn't it? There's something about it. I always think they taste clean. I know it's hard to describe. It's like a clean, I don't know if I'd say fishy, but almost pleasantly tinged chicken is how I describe frog.
I always say it's like a sweet chicken. It's got a
yeah.
Not much on meat on there, but it's I quite enjoy it. It's got a real nice sort of sweet texture to it.
Lovely. Well, we're kind of coming towards the end now. Was just wanted to. Is there anything that we perhaps haven't covered so far? It doesn't have to be about barbecue or anything, but just anything that you'd like to kind of mention or bring up or start a discussion around.
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything from my end. I think, for me, I just absolutely love seeing people using our sauces, seeing the ways they do it, and it brings a lot of joy. So that first moment when someone sends you a picture and they've used this, it's even now when an order comes from like a giddy little kid. I just think it's the thought of someone willing to spend their hard-earned money, because we're all struggling, and for them to choose my sauce over a sauce they can pick up in Tesco's, I just think it's amazing, and I can't thank the general public enough for their support, and especially the barbecue community and our stockists. They've just been absolutely brilliant. I think Charles from SoCal, I think he was the very first person to take me on, and just believed in me in day one. I said, "No, we'll have you." I didn't even sort of question it. And then all the other stockists from then have just stuck with me as I've grown. And it's just can't thank them enough, really. It's been brilliant.
Fantastic. And on that point then, about shouting about it, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram, was his Sauce Hut, Facebook. I'm dipping my toe into TikTok, but not quite there yet. But yeah, we're there. And then just online at washisaucehut.co.uk.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure, and hope to sort of catch up with you soon. No doubt we'll probably see you at one of the festivals upcoming. But thank you very so much for coming to the show.
Really appreciate you having me on finally.
Thanks, Walter. Well,
it was worth the wait.
It's one of those things where different things get in the way, and it's always been great seeing you in person. But for Owen and I, there's something comforting about seeing people on Zoom, and it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Really appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks, Woz.
Thanks a lot.
And that's it for another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue Podcast. Thank you so much, Woz. It's been great speaking to you. And for anyone who's interested in looking at sauces, go check out Woz's Sauce Hut. Some fantastic things there. And as ever, if you want to get in contact, as Owen mentioned in the intro, you can click on the link and there's a way to message us directly. Now, unfortunately, we can't message you back, so make sure you leave your name and if you want us to reply, any contact details, but we'll read them out on the show and answer any questions that you have. Please do like and subscribe to the podcast on all of the different podcast ways that you can listen, and also find us on Instagram, all social media and everything. And until next time, keep on grilling.
Today's episode is brought to you by AOS Kitchens, the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.